the beginning of Monday, November 13th, regularly scheduled Conservation Commission meeting to 3 p.m. and we're obligated to begin with the reading of the preamble related to this remote meeting. So Dan, you're on.
Pursuant to Governor Haley's March 29, 2023 bill extending several COVID-era policies and programs by allowing virtual meetings to continue from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing/meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website, www.nortonmediacenter.org, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Thank you, Dan. So participating tonight, we have our office staff, John Thomas, our director, and Megan Harrup, our assistant. I am Julian Kadish, chair. We also have Lisa, the vice chair, Dan Pearson, Paxton Halschel, and Tom Avest. We may get a couple of other members participating later, which I will enter into the record if that happens.
Yeah.
So our first meeting tonight, new public hearing, file number 250-1140, 237 East Main Street. And this involves a parcel adjacent the Condyne project on Leonard Street. A little bit of history here because that parcel was actually to be developed as two separate retail commercial buildings. That plan was changed, and because it was set up as two orders of conditions, it is much simpler to close those out and combine it as one project, which is what will be presented in this hearing as I understand it. So do we have a representative of the applicant? And if you could pick it up from here.
Yes, Julian, my name is Don O'Neill from Condyne, and I have Brandon Carr, a civil engineer, along with us to present tonight. John Thomas and board members, thanks for having us tonight. And we're here to discuss 237 East Main Street. And Julian, you're right, we had it under two similar lots, and it was designed for retail, and then COVID set in, and the interest as far as retail on the lot was few and far between. And I think it's been a good 3 years since we were original plan for those lots. It's a 32,000 square foot, 420 square feet warehouse building. It will be similar to the existing buildings that you see on 4 and 5. We have parking.
Pardon just 1 second. If you have sharing capability, maybe we can bring up a plan for those not completely familiar with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you get going, I just want to make a note that member Lisa Carrozza is going to recuse herself from this project because she has her husband has ties to this project, so she's going to recuse herself.
Well,
I don't interrupt the flow, but yes.
but I've been thinking about this. She certainly would recuse herself from voting on decisions, but as a resident of town, I think she is certainly able to ask questions. It's been identified that there is a connection through a relative of having done work, but I don't see that I mean, what is recusing in this
So,
context
In
amount to?
if we were meeting in person, what she would do is she would step down from the podium per se, or the board, and she would go into the audience. So in essence, with the kind of procedures that are made through virtual, it's best for her to turn off her screen and technically be a member of the audience under that kind of condition.
Okay, but yeah, I personally don't think that's necessary. We've identified what some people could consider an appearance of conflict, but this is not the equivalent of a gag order during a proceeding. So I'm just a little more relaxed about it in that regard. But we've identified the possibility of conflict. So enough said. We will move on.
Sure, that's okay. What Brandon has brought up is the site that we're talking about that's in blue, which is on the front of East Main Street and the side of Leonard Street, and it's the first lot. In our original build, we discussed about retail, and the success there hasn't been, which is unfortunate, but the warehouse interest is a strong interest at that site. If we can turn to the next page, Brandon, showing the facility itself. And this is the property that we're talking about out front. And as I was alluding to, the parking is in the front, which is on the Leonard Street side, with the entrance coming in to the shared access. All utilities are in place. The building's 32,420 square feet. Similar looks to the other facilities, with the loading docks for trucks in the back. If you want to touch base, Brandon, and come in on the civil design and engineering with landscape and the basins, infiltration, traffic flow, we can go from there.
Good evening, everyone. Brandon Carr from Dupree Engineering. Yeah, so as Don said, that we've got the industrial building here and the warehouse building here in the center of the lot. It's kind of a long, skinny lot, so it's kind of a long, skinny building to make it fit in there. We've got the truck loading in the back here, and then the parking up front. We meet all applicable, zoning setbacks, site coverages, amount of parking, things like that. We are before planning tomorrow night for a site plan review. As Don mentioned, all the utilities are stubbed basically in this drive aisle. So this existing drive aisle is built. It serves building 4 here, and we'll be stubbing off of that. So water, sewer, gas, and electric are all stubbed in this front portion of the site here. I should point out why we're before conservation. So if I should flip back to the aerial, this site is located at the front here, right at the corner of East Main and Leonard Street, and the Canoe River is south of our property, and then there's some wetlands associated with the Canoe River. So we're not working. We don't have any wetlands on our site, I should say, but a portion of would be the 100-foot setback from the wetland, and this is the 200-foot riverfront do come onto our site. So all our development, all our paved surfaces, our stormwater ponds, our buildings are outside the riverfront. The actually only section of work that we're doing in the riverfront is this small area here, which is actually disturbed today, and we'll just be removing is like a little bit of a stockpile that extended into the riverfront. But we would be reseeding that, and kind of letting that grow back in naturally. The previous application did have work in that riverfront. So the only work here is to kind of restore that riverfront area. From a stormwater standpoint, we have 3 treatment BMPs. So for the working from front to the back of the site, we have combination sand filter on the right here, infiltration basin that treats the front parking lot. Then we have an underground infiltration system here that serves the roof. And the overflow from that front sand filter, you can see it's connected into there. So that infiltrates up to the 100-year storm for the front parking lot and the roof, those 2 practices combined. And then in the back, we have a similar, we basically have a paved waterway to a sediment forebay to a sand filter, and also another infiltration pond. And that handles the back parking and loading area, as well as there's this kind of a swale that runs along the western side of the building in between our building and East Main Street. So that captures some runoff from that side yard area, and also some that comes down the embankment from 123 from East Main Street. Again, that was that infiltrates. I don't believe that infiltrates up to the 100-year storm, but it overtops, I think, at the past the 25-year storm. But we meet all on a site basis and watershed basis. We meet all water quality, infiltration, and peak attenuation requirements. Everything's designed per the town standards and per the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook. We did have a peer review done by, I think it was Amory, which I don't have in front of me right now. Was it Amory, John?
It was Pat Brennan. He's actually, I guess, not working with them. He has his own business now.
I recognize the name, and I think he used to, yeah, so Pat Brennan did the review. We got 4 or 5 comments. We responded to them, and then we got it all clear from him on that. If there's any questions on the peer review, I can go through it. Any of the individual items. I just think the last piece I'll just walk through is the landscape plan, which we submitted. So we are providing street trees along Leonard Street, some plantings around a proposed sign on the corner here, and then street trees down the side here to buffer us from East Main Street. Plantings, required grass and different plantings in the 2 stormwater areas, and then some street trees, some trees around the parking lot, and then the remainder is lumen seed and some screening for the transformer up front. But for the most part, very kind of typical mix, similar, one of the same species that we provided in the back for phase 2 Blue Star. I guess the last thing, it's not really as much a conservation item, but in case anybody has questions, there is an existing right turn lane off of East Main Street here that was going to basically come in right between the 2 retail lots. So one of the retail lots stood here, one of it stood down here. So that kind of served as the main entrance to that retail off of East Main. That's going to be removed as part of this. It doesn't work for this program anymore. So we would work with MassDOT to remove that curb cut. So I think that's kind of a high level overview of the site design. We did a site walk with a few members, John, on Friday. And like I said, we received it all clear on the peer review, but if you have any questions on particularly the site design, anything we're proposing or the peer review, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. So, from what you summarized, it appears that there is less impact on the riverfront area and no impact on the wetland 100-foot buffer, as it was before. But you said there would have been a little riverfront area impact that's now being reduced to none. And then the stormwater has met peer reviewer
steel plates, steel trench boxes, steel beams, things like that that don't have any moving parts, or certainly not going to be piling gravel down there. There's no room for that, and that's not what this is all about. It would to pile anything on there would do the things that you said, cause a mess. And I'm looking to have a nice clean gravel yard there with all the water that rolls off into the right areas. And it's gonna be a nice control, or a nice neat and tidy place of just new and refurbished equipment that we sell and rent. So there will be it's not gonna be a yard for bark mulch or loom or any of that stuff. That's not my business. I leave that to the other guys.
But you will have reasonable sized machines there to move that equipment and load it and unload it, I assume, from transport.
I might have a small forklift over there. That would be it.
So that would be suitable for the size of equipment that you're saying you're storing there.
Absolutely, yeah. Only up to a 12,000-pound forklift is really probably the most I would need.
So John Thomas, I would just ask that we add a condition that says there's no, just no material stockpiling. So that's all. I know you don't intend to, sir, but who knows?
Well, I don't intend to, but I don't want to go down the road of just putting all kinds of arbitrary restrictions on there. You just don't know what's going to happen down the future either.
So,
This isn't arbitrary, sir.
I mean, I
It's
will
not
say,
arbitrary.
is that what we could do is basically state a condition, obviously outside our jurisdiction. You can basically stockpile whatever you need to, but it needs to be in compliance with the stormwater.
Yeah.
Is that, within the parameters of the 100-foot buffer zone, there's going to be no storage of material and things of that nature. So you're basically going to have to figure out what you're going to do on site, have it contained, and make sure it complies with all the rules.
Absolutely. And the only thing I ever have any intention of doing is anything that is within the existing bylaws, all lawful purposes and nothing else. And if there's not outside of the what's allowed within the town zoning bylaws, which I've read many times, but it's pretty complicated. I keep referring back to that. I have no intention on even going anywhere near 90% of what's allowed in there.
All right, but I think, from a practical everyday issue, a gravel surface doesn't last forever, particularly if you're driving over it. And we just want to be sure that things get maintained and it doesn't become just a muddy mess. But then
I agree.
a rainstorm goes into the wetland.
I absolutely agree, and that's not what I would want. I agree 1,000% with that. I intend on having a nice, neat, tidy yard over there, and that's it. No, very similar to what Riberio has over there on next to the lake. He's got everything nice and graveled and pitched, I should say, and it's beautiful over there. Now he's grandfathered on all the things that I'm doing here with the drainage and everything, but it's still a good looking system over there where it's not mud. He did a beautiful job grading it. It's got the right stone that's large enough. And
Right, but
we'll be stripping out
by
any organic material before we put any gravel down.
right, but by the same token, regardless of how long that facility has been there, if it became degraded to the point where mud and other materials were washing into the reservoir, that would spark immediate action on the part of the director and the Conservation Commission. So that's our concern, is just to be maintained. All right, so a question as to what we do. I'm assuming this modification of the plan, we have suitable information in order to act on an amended order. Is that correct, John?
I mean, unless there's some other sort of outstanding items that people want put on the plan for clarification. I mean, we can just, pending receipt of that final plan, we can, make this happen as well. I think there were some questions and concerns that were raised by a couple members this evening.
I think the most important one is to make sure the detail for the gravel is there, make sure it's sufficient, and make sure it's noted where the contractor has to put the gravel.
Will do.
And I would also show the areas that you're gonna stabilize with grass. That way, when you come back for an as-built, it's clear.
All right, so that sounds like we can consider a motion to close. I don't hear any objection to that. So it looks like there is a hand up in the audience, so perhaps we can go ahead with that. Sam, computer name Sam? You have to take your mic off mute though before you can ask, but is that a real? You know what? That's my cursor in the wrong spot. All right, I take it back. No questions. So we can consider a motion to close.
So moved.
Sorry, I'll make that motion to close the public hearing for file 250-1119.
Yeah, I think Ron got it as the motion. You got it as the second. So we can go ahead and vote on the motion to close. Starting with Lisa and Ron.
Aye.
Aye.
And Paxton and Tama.
Aye.
Aye.
And Dan, and I'll throw in an aye.
All right.
All right, the motion carries. That's file number 250-1119 is closed. Our next item is notice of intent, file number 250-1138, I guess. 14 Guy Street. And what was the recommendation on that? Do we have a representative or is this a request for continuation?
No, because of the time frame of the last meeting, we weren't able to close an issue. So we told them.
Yes. Right.
But based on the design and everything, I think, some of my comments were to kind of review the house location, but based on the, the driveway and the grades and everything, it would be kind of problematic and public safety hazard. So they left it as is, but, I guess the commission, was comfortable with potentially closing and issuing order conditions this evening for that project.
Sorry, is that 1139?
So the only,
14 Guy Street.
Oh, is this number G?
1138, I think.
Okay, I'm on the wrong
I
thing.
might have gotten screwed up here. It is listed as item G.
I'm looking at John's report.
250-11.
Did I have it the wrong one?
I don't know, I'm looking at G of your report.
Which one did I have? I don't know.
I don't know, maybe it's not the same as the agenda. I'll go back to the agenda.
On
Okay,
the agenda, it's G.
Oh,
okay, I'm looking at the
1138.
commission report. I think it's different.
yeah.
Okay,
I messed up. I apologize.
okay, no worries. I just have to have it open, but. Okay, I got it.
All right, I think
I didn't have it on there because in my report because you guys were all comfortable with it.
so it sounds like the only item is to close the hearing and then consider the order of conditions. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was my recommendation to the board.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to close the hearing for file number 250-1138, 14 Guy Street.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion made by Tama and seconded by Paxton to close the hearing. Again, roll call vote, starting with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye. Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And how do you vote, Ron? Not Ron, Dan.
All right,
All right, motion carries. And we still have one more hearing. File number, excuse me, file number 250-1139, notice of intent on Dean Street. I don't recall where we were with this one, so maybe someone can refresh my memory.
I'd be glad to, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair. My name is Eric Dias. I am representative of the applicant, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering.
And do we have a plan? Because that will, I think.
Yes, I do. Let me share my screen. And it's coming up. And everybody should be able to see that plan.
Yes.
Okay, so just to recap, when we last left off at the last meeting, I certainly don't want to put words in the commission's mouth, but I believe the commission was relatively comfortable with what we're proposing. We had a pretty clean letter from Pat Brennan with just a couple of things to address. And the commission asked us to continue to give them time to prepare an order of conditions inside of the I think it's 30-day or 21-day window, whatever it is.
Right.
To the extent that the commission appeared satisfied, I certainly did not want to rock the boat. However, we went to the planning board the next night and they asked us to make a few changes to the plan. So we did. Nothing that I think the commission will have an issue with. A few things that I've actually spoken with John Thomas about, but I'd like to just walk you through those real quick so you know exactly where we are at this point. If I can go to the plan set here. Now, I've only reissued the sections of the plan that warranted revision at this point, based on some of the comments that the planning board made. So the first thing the planning board asked about, we talked about the idea of clearing and how to help ensure that these lots don't end up cleared at some point in the future. And, we noted that obviously there's a large BBW on the site and the commission has a 25-foot no-touch buffer. And it appeared that, everybody might be a little bit more comfortable with a bit of a belt and suspenders type of approach. So after consultation with Mr. Thomas, what we actually are proposing is, you see the red line that we put across the back of these lots, and I can go to the next sheet in the set as well. And you'll see the same or a similar red line against the back of these lots, along the back of these lots, excuse me, and they approximate the 25-foot buffer zone. What we're calling them is an open space preservation boundary. It's a reasonably significant portion of the overall property, and the idea is that there will be a condition of approval either written into the deeds as a deed restriction, and certainly part of any HOA documents that basically identifies that in perpetuity, there will be no clearing of trees beyond these red lines that you see here on any of these lots. We propose to mark them with some wooden posts with appropriate vinyl medallions on top every 75 feet or so, just to make sure that there is some demarcation of that in the field. So hopefully that helps give people a little bit more of a comfort level with a bit of a belt and suspenders approach to, limiting further clearing even beyond what the commission might one day allow. The other thing that we've written in and this is probably less of a condition issue, but just some guidelines for vegetative screening between the lots and the existing abutters, basically to maintain a vegetative screen, and anywhere that we can't, we will install either a fence or an evergreen screen of some sort just to help limit visual impact. Again, more of a planning board thing. But the last thing that we did provide on these plans, and this was in response to one of the comments that Pat Brennan had, if you go to the erosion control page, you'll see down here we have a whole plethora of notes that we added. And these are construction phase inspection and monitoring requirements, just a guideline, basic minimum requirements for what we're going to do to maintain the erosion controls and protect the stormwater system during construction. We do note in here that this project will be subject to a NIPD's construction general permit, and there is a SWIP that goes with that, so certainly that will govern. But we wanted something, just at least absolute minimums on the plan, and then refer back to the SWIP for additional controls, things like that. So those are the only changes to the plans from what you last saw. I think they are improvements. I think conservation areas are always a good thing, and more controls for keeping the site clean during construction can never hurt.
And from your plan, you don't even get into the buffer. And currently it is not cleared into that area. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Currently, the site is largely vegetated. The only place that we're getting into the buffer zone is in this location here. You see this hatch striped area. This is going to be a discharge from a stormwater outlet. It discharges right here outside of the 25-foot buffer. We made sure to keep it more than 100 feet away from what is technically a potential vernal pool, but is very likely certifiable. So in the event that it ever is certified, we've already accounted for it. We're 100 feet away from it, and we're good to go. So this area is the only disturbance proposed within the buffer zone.
Okay, I'm really confused by this open space. You're not giving us anything. We already own the first 25 feet that you can't touch. So what? It's between there and the 100 that somebody could clear right up to that property line is what you're saying.
Somebody could clear up to that between there and the 100, and obviously that's.
So this open space designation is nothing. It means nothing because we already restrict the first 25 feet. So why isn't that open space 50, 75, or why doesn't it go to the edge of the buffer? We should be drawing the line in the sand at the buffer zone, because right now, these people can take this and clear all the way back to that open space. All the way
with a permit, yes, they can.
Yeah, that's
right.
And that has to come in front of us. I think, part of the condition that goes along with these subdivision roadway projects is that the planning board has some stipulations that sometimes they need to have open space preservation. Isn't that right, Eric?
yes, it is.
Right,
And
so
that's what I'm saying. The planning board. I mean, I think this was just showing us that, for instance, they're having open space preservation areas for these properties. It has no bearing on the approval for conservation. It's more so just putting it on the same plan. So that way, for instance, when someone comes in front of us and, pulls a file for this and says, oh, can we please see the conservation plan for, this development, because we want to see, what's going on, and whether we can, potentially put a patio out there or something like that may be infringing upon the 100-foot buffer, and they notice, hey, there's an open space, boundary out there, or they're within the 100-foot buffer. So I think it's just just showing all the cards on the table for anyone that potentially pulls this file in the future.
So what does the commission want to do in terms of a visual barrier or trying to block further tree removal in that 100-foot buffer with consideration to a potential vernal pool back there? Because that's the most critical part, is that vegetation.
Well, I mean, we don't have a local bylaw. And as the state requires for protection for vernal pool habitat, it only goes up to the resource area that it's within.
Right,
So-
but John, we put visual barriers everywhere, so we're gonna.
Right, so I'd say that, our typical stance on that is putting it at the 25-foot buffer. But if the commission feels it necessary, I mean, they're not doing that much work on this project, so, I mean, I just,
Right, but that's not the homeowner, John. The homeowner moves in, the tree line's at the 100-foot buffer. The homeowner has no idea and they start clearing all the way up to that. That's what I'm concerned about.
but isn't that every project that comes in front of us? Any
It
new
is, but
buyer?
aren't we tired of it? Are we tired of it? Are we gonna actually do something about it? Are we gonna, are we gonna put up the stop sign somewhere at some
I mean,
point?
but why pick a project like this that has like the least amount of impacts for this to start this on? I mean, there's plenty of other projects that have come in front of us that, are well more obtrusive than this one. I guess that's my question. Why is now the kind of the turning point?
Okay, one, we have to start somewhere. Two, I'm seeing that there's an obvious disconnect between what the developer tells us they're gonna do, and then the first person in the door into these houses might elect to, clear more to put a swimming pool or whatever else in, right? So wouldn't we wanna put something in here that would prohibit maybe work closer than the 25? I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
But I think in this case, the only thing we could really request is at those spots where the wooded, the border with the woods meets the 100-foot, that we could just have an informative sign that's saying, please note,
Yeah,
clearing beyond this area requires obtaining a permit. And, we can specify this from Conservation Commission or not, because there are a couple of spots, at least on the plan that's up, where it's right at the 100-foot.
right.
And people may not be aware that, they're entering a regulated area.
Yeah, it just needs to be clear so that it's passed along to the homeowner. I get that it, looks like they've done minimizing impacts here, which is great, but doesn't always translate to the person moving in, so.
So just so the commission's aware, we just purchased some new placards, the ones that we typically use for the 25-foot buffer, the visual buffer.
Mhm.
I think 250 of those cost me $750. So just to kind of give you a sense as to kind of how much they cost. And those are 4-inch placards.
Mhm.
So if we're going to start doing that for every project, we're going to have to, have some sort of, visual barrier fee, because I can't, we don't have enough funds to pay for that. So that's another thing
Can
to
we use it
think
in the
about.
Wetland Protection Act fund?
I mean, it's a local requirement. It's not wetland protection.
Mm,
So that's the issue.
mm. Okay, well, something to consider.
All right, but we are set to close this hearing for this. Correct?
Yes, we are.
Yep.
And are we ready for that step?
Yes.
Well, we need agreement with the commission members, and if we have that agreement, let's hear a motion. And the file number is yeah, 250-1139.
I'll make a motion to close that file number.
Motion made by Tama, seconded by
And second that.
seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton. Ron,
Aye.
it looked like an aye. And Paxton, I got your eye. So Tama and Lisa,
Aye.
I'll throw in an eye, and how do you vote, Dan?
Aye.
All right, very
Yes.
good. So we now are, I guess, according to the agenda, our next item is the request for a COC for file number 250-1023, which related to one of the retail projects abutting Route 123 and Leonard Street. The other one is our next one, also requesting certificate of compliance for 250-1024. No work was done on either of these projects, and as I understand it from John, they can be closed out in favor of the hearing that we had tonight.
Yeah, they should be closed out before the commission would ever make a decision to clean the slate.
So moved.
I think we have to do it one at a time. So motion to close to issue certificate of compliance for file number 250-1023. And Tama, I'm assuming you made that motion.
Yes.
And we have a second.
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 I think Paxton won that for the second. So a roll call vote starting with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
So Ron, your mic continues to be off, but I think I saw Liv reading an aye. Okay. And now Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, and I'm assuming, Lisa, you have to be recorded. Abstention. Okay. And now a similar motion for file number 250-1024.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Ron, seconded by Tama. Again, roll call vote, starting with Ron and Paxton,
Aye.
Aye.
and Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw an aye. The motion for
Abstain.
the certificate of compliance passed, and we have an abstention from Lisa. Next item is certificate of compliance for file number 250-1120. Okay, that's on 257 Main Street. Do we have, well, maybe you can describe what that project is, because that's a fairly recent one, I guess.
Sorry, I just closed my screen by accident. Give me 1 second to get it back up.
Okay.
So 257 Plain Street, it was a project that was in front of us. They were proposing a garage. They've completed the construction of that garage that was in the riverfront area. And I inspected it with the landowner yesterday last week. And everything seems to be good based on my visual observations. The visual barriers in, I gave him the placards. He was adhering them as we were talking about vacationing in Aruba. So it was a good chat, and everything seems to be working out for that project.
So I'll make a motion to issue a full certificate of compliance for 250-1120.
Second.
So we have a motion by Lisa, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And how do you vote, Dan?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item is 14 Guy Street, order of conditions. And I am going to confess I was unable to review that order. So I don't know if that's gonna be controversial or not? Anything complicated there?
It was pretty straightforward, tailored order of conditions for the raising of a residential building and then the reconstruction of a building within the buffer zone. I didn't have anything of crazy substance to it. I don't know if any of the members had any comments on it.
No, it was pretty straightforward. I will make a motion to issue the order conditions for file 250-1138.
Second.
We have a motion by Lisa, seconded by Dan to issue the order of conditions for file number 250-1138. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, and how do you vote, Dan?
Aye.
So the motion carries. Now we had one more item, the modification of the orders for the Goose Brook Garage. We did not vote on that. The movement of the work pad. And I'm assuming we all have no problem with that, and it was recommended it's actually an improvement. So our file number on that
Was
1128. So
Yeah.
John, it looks like you just took out the alteration, the quantification of the alteration in the resource area, and just said that it's outside of the buffer zone and riverfront area, right?
that's mainly what I thought was the easiest thing to do for this
Okay.
whole entire project.
Okay. I will make a motion to issue the amended order of conditions for file 250-1128.
Second.
So we have a motion made by Lisa to issue the amended order, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton,
Aye.
Aye.
and Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. How do you vote, Dan? And
Aye.
looks like an aye. So the motion carries. We now have minutes.
Yeah, I just want to apologize to Eric. Eric, I wasn't able to get to your order of conditions for 0 Dean Street, so I apologize for that. I had quite a bit of happening. We have open space stuff, and I had a lot of stuff on my plate, so I apologize for that.
No, no problem, understood. If I may, just to clarify though, that means we won't, the commission won't be formalizing a vote on that tonight. It will be at the next meeting, is that right?
It's going to be at the next meeting, yes.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you very much. We
Yep, you're
appreciate
welcome.
your time.
Any comment on the comments on the submitted draft of the minutes of October 16th?
I did have a question, I myself. There was a gentleman who sounded as if his name was Clinner on one of the files, and
Dan,
I
he
could
was
not.
he was on the call tonight for Collins Engineering.
Oh, Clenner. I see. Or Clenner. Okay.
Leonard, yes.
Okay.
All right. So you can just
so
add his
anyway,
name.
Yeah, I have to find out where it was. It was the one.
I think it was
Well,
the
there was-
first one.
It was for Guy Street.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, that was the. Yep. Okay, so
KLE. I can't even remember. Clenner.
yeah, so I'll put that in. Yeah, that was the one where Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Brooke Monroe.
Yeah. I thought there was, I spoke to Megan about this. I thought there was somebody named, or some company named Brookman Rowe. And so I was feverishly looking over the internet for some engineering company called Brookman Rowe. And it was
Brooke Monroe is a wetland scientist.
Monroe, who's a wetlands scientist.
All right, well, so it looks like, Lisa, you were absent from that meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, I was absent, so I don't know how I could have abstained.
Oh, yeah, I sorry about that. Yeah, that's, I didn't realize, I thought I had taken all those out, but I guess
Well, there is a copy, but that can be corrected?
that can be corrected.
Well, it
John,
looks
do you
like-
want me to send you a
I can fix it,
updated?
Dan.
I'm sorry?
I said I can fix it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Megan. Yeah,
Is there any reason why Ron abstained?
because he was with
Oh.
you.
Well, was he in a butter or something? Oh,
No. I just
all right.
somehow I had it in my brain that absence was abstention, which of course is a different thing. So I apologize for that. Wherever it was that.
yeah, but it's all over the place. It's all the way down to
Yeah.
meeting minutes.
Yeah, and Paxton may have had to abstain because he was not involved
Right,
at all with any of the hearings,
right. Okay,
staff point.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Okay,
well,
so-
it just says the,
Yeah.
that just says, I mean, it looks like that column has to disappear because other than for Paxton's abstention.
So Megan, you're good with that and putting Clennert in?
Yes, I can do that.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, so we can, unless there's further corrections, we can consider a vote on the draft as amended.
I have to abstain, so someone has to make the motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected by Megan.
And this is for October 16th, so we need a second.
Second.
Motion made by Thomas, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And we have an abstention registered for Lisa. Report from staff.
So during our site walk, it was great if everybody show up. Next time for everybody else, it's fine. But we had a lot of fun, I think, even though we all had the day off, but it was good to get everybody out there and see kind of the site. So that's good. Lisa came out with a very good suggestion. She was talking about how the 25-foot no disturb buffer is no longer applicable, and we should expand it to a larger distance as a setback. So I wanted to throw that out to everybody. She has proposed 50 feet. So for a policy, obviously, we do not have a local bylaw. So the way around that is to, have a policy. So I basically would be looking to draft up a potential policy for the next meeting, hopefully to have that potentially in for discussions, and then to get approved, because I think all policies have to get approved through town meeting. So that's one thing that we'd have to do. So I can definitely draft up a potential policy. in the interim, for the next meeting to basically have the members kind of look at it, because as we know, 25 just isn't cutting it anymore. A lot of local towns and municipalities have bylaws, and they also have this 50-foot no disturb buffer policy within them for the same kind of level of, you know, needs and protection, because as we've noticed, people like to push the envelope and go right up to the 25-foot buffer. So with that said, I leave it up to the members to discuss this and whether they think it's a good idea. But I'll just leave it up to you guys to discuss.
John, what would happen if we pointed out, if we asked for 100 feet?
Yeah,
I think you already know the answer to that, Dan.
Yeah, I mean,
Lisa is laughing.
Well, you're in effect creating new legislation. Although if town meeting approves it, I guess it would become new legislation, basically a bylaw. But do you think you could get it?
My
town meeting?
No, but my instincts would be to make it, to ask for 125, and then we can have people feel good about going back and only doing 100.
So I can tell you, Dan, there's a handful of towns that have what they do is they consider the buffer zone a resource area. And there's a handful of them, but you're still allowed to do things in them, but then they have, within that 100 feet, they'll say, okay, you can't put a building up within 50. And then the last 25, you have to, you know, leave undisturbed. So there's all kinds of things you can do. But I really think that when we looked at the 25, it's been 20 plus years. It was baby steps in this town, right? It was, okay, we need to stop people from going up right to the very edge. And we've been living with that for 20 plus years. And now people are pushing the envelope. They're right on the 25.
Well, but I think it's fair to say there's science to back up that the at least 25 feet is needed for proper functioning of the wetland. And so, I mean, if we can come up with some additional bolstering of that 25 feet is not enough, and, you know, no buildings within 50 feet, that's reasonable.
I guess my question is, in the last 5 years, why did DEP redo their policy for groundwater infiltration? That's groundwater infiltration, mind you, right? It's not superficial, you know, disturbance or anything, or a building going up. That's just groundwater going back into the ground, being 50 feet away from a wetland. You know, there's some sort of study or something that was done, you know, to really promulgate the need for having that, you know, 50-foot buffer off a lot of these infiltration best management systems. So I guess my question is, you know, how do we justify this 50-foot addendum to the 25? I think if we can just try to come off of what DEP has, you know, kind of instilled with that policy, we can say, hey, look, times are changing, things are happening, you know, we need to, you know, get with the program. And I hope that a lot of people would on board with this and not think that we're just trying to take away available uplands that they can just basically, you know, infringe upon the wetlands with.
I definitely believe it's warranted. You know, people have been adhering to the 25, you know, in good faith, but it's a policy. It hasn't been tested yet, right? Because we can't deny something. If somebody came into the 25, we still can't deny it because they could just appeal it to DEP. So,
well, if that's,
I mean, the other option is we just do a very simple bylaw and put forward a very simple bylaw and say that regulations will be drafted up in a year, and we can basically put whatever regulations we want in effect and not have to go to town meeting for that. The only thing that we need to do is just put a very simple bylaw in front of the town, you know, make it as boilerplate as possible. And then, you know,
we had to get town meeting approval for bylaw.
For bylaw, yes. For bylaw, we do. For regulations, you do not.
I don't think you can have regulations without a bylaw.
No, but for instance, you don't need to get regulations. You can have the bylaw, but then for instance, the regulations refer to the bylaw. So the regulations should be, for instance, the commission should be able to vote on the regulations. That's how I
Yes,
did,
you can.
that's how I did it in Sharon. So that's how I would envision it happening here.
Okay, so you're saying if the bylaw is gonna be very general, and it's just gonna give us the authority to promulgate regulations.
Correct.
I gotcha. So is that something we wanna consider, or
I
is
think,
that?
I think you have a better
the
shot
toughest
doing
law?
that. I think you have a better shot doing that.
Yeah, but this would primarily apply to new construction, not modifications of old.
Yeah, so that's when, for instance, we would have, because this is what I dealt with when I was revising all the regulations and things in Sharon too, was, you know, how this is applicable to new development versus pre-existing development. And I clearly stated what constitutes pre-existing development versus what is new development. And, you know, it's a fine line, but for instance, you just got to make sure that you identify it in a manner that kind of works. So when someone's coming in for a redevelopment project or an area that was previously permitted, that's where I would say that, you know, that's the importance, is it was previously permitted, had all the necessary permits, and, you know, went through the whole entire process. They would be basically not have to worry about the project as much conforming to that, you know, setback. But for instance, if it's brand new development where they're going to be cutting trees down and, you know, bringing in 8 feet of fill, you know, similar to other projects that we've seen in front of us, that would constitute the need for enforcing those sort of, you know, regulatory features.
John, do you, or Lisa, do you have idea in your head of a list of the towns that have passed the more conservative, by which I mean more liberal, environmental restrictions?
There's hundreds of, Dan.
Yeah, there's
couldn't
plenty of
tell
them.
you.
I would, if you're looking for a very conservative bylaw, look at Easton's. I remember when I was on the commission over there, they had a very conservative bylaw. Mansfield's kind of, you know, on the fence between being for and against, so it's kind of in the middle. But generally, I mean, there's other towns too that are kind of in the same boat that we are in. They have a bylaw, but still they don't have kind of the needed protections that other towns do have.
So, but John, do you think, what's the easier road to go in terms of town meeting? Is it just the 50-foot policy, or is it enacting bylaws? So, I mean, the last time we tried a bylaw, it was shot down.
I know, and here's kind of the challenge that we have in front of us, is that if we want to infringe upon more protection for, you know, preserving the resource areas and the like, you know, my suggestion would be, you know, if you're going to do 50 feet, you're probably going to want a bylaw for enforceability.
Yep.
Because otherwise, basically, someone can just do whatever they want. They still need to file a permit, but they can just basically tell the commission that, hey, it's a policy, you know, I don't really need to, you know, there's no enforcement to it.
Right.
So that's where we're basically, you know, we're giving everybody and applicants, you know, the good faith kind of Boy Scout, Girl Scout kind of motto, you know, to basically, you know, be good stewards with the land, but not everybody sees it that way. And, you know,
So can we go down the path in two-pronged approach, right? Can we put two things on the whatever the hell it is, the ballot for the spring? Can we go enact a 50-foot policy and at the same time enact a bylaw?
yeah, I mean,
Why
I don't
can't we do that?
I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. I mean, the question though becomes that, you know, would you rather want the bylaw or the policy?
Well, no, because then what happens is if they approve the bylaw and we get to promulgate regs, then we take that 50-foot policy and we wrap it up into a reg.
Yeah,
We spell in reg, that's all.
I get it. So like, for instance, you know, you're basically, you know, playing the slots, hopefully, and you're hoping that you're gonna, you know, hit the lucky sevens on one of them.
Right, so we put both before them, and if one's shot down, then we have a shot at the other.
Right. I would hopefully, you know, try to curtail some language and basically make it sound and try to sell it as much as I can. You know, especially in areas where, you know, it's just unfortunate to see some sort of development going in these areas, but it's just how it's presented to us. But at the same point, I think there's certain areas in town that would definitely, you know, welcome this kind of, you know, setback and potential protection in the future.
Well, let's think about going down both roads if it's possible.
So I would say that if we actually want to, you know, have a discussion about this, I mean, I think the next town meeting is in May. So I'd probably want to get going on potentially getting something together. I'd ask one of the members here, I don't know who it wants to be, to help me spearhead this cause and basically, you know, formulate a strategy and game plan for approaching this. I was going to nominate Dan Pearson if you're available, because I know you've
why
been.
not? Yeah, I know. I feel you're hitting me at just the right time because I feel guilty about not going to the site visit. So yes.
Well, I just
well
know how
played.
much of an I know how much of an advocate you have been, and I was actually going to see if Paxton wants to, you know, just kind of shadow kind of a lot of this and kind of just see what potentially we could do for this, you know, moving forward. You know, meeting of the minds to basically kind of just get this going, and then once we meet and discuss kind of what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a bunch of bylaws together from adjacent towns so that way we can kind of go through it and just kind of see what other towns are basically having. And then we can kind of just, you know, either culminate a kind of a consensus or basically get something together to really, you know, formulate a strategy. And then, you know, hopefully then we can meet with the commission during an executive session or something to kind of try to hash this all out. So, but
Yeah, I just want to put out there, happy to help Dan, help you, put together. something. So,
That is if we're all in agreement that it needs to be revisited to begin with.
okay, so I guess the question is, does everyone want to revisit this?
This being specifically a bylaw that will allow us to stipulate primarily the 50-foot be left untouched, or did I get that wrong?
Well, it's gonna be either a bylaw and or the 50-foot no disturb policy. So we put them both before town meeting to see which one
Okay.
falls.
Do they both have to be voted on? Both a bylaw and a policy have to be voted on?
They
No,
would
but
both.
what I'm afraid is if we nominate just one thing, we say, okay, we're gonna go for a bylaw, and that's shot down again.
I'm just that, yeah, I'm
So-
afraid that if one gets shot down, they both get shot down. That's what I'm,
And then that's kind of what I'm getting at is that, you know, the problem that we run into here in town is that, you know, just making sure that everybody that is pro environment or, you know, not pro development, but also wants to have an even balance, show up to the meeting and kind of try to basically promote what we're trying to do here is basically have some form of, you know, official enforcement, but also, you know, trying to protect the environment at the same point.
I mean, I'm definitely in favor of continuing the discussion and making sure that we get the right options to the table, to ensure as best success as we can. I don't know that we're gonna solve it tonight. I'm getting a little sleepy
No.
myself.
Definitely not. I just wanted to bring it up because
Not
Lisa
that.
brought it up at the meeting. So that's all I'm gonna say on that.
And I'll give a note of encouragement to Paxton. No, this is not our common meeting length. Usually don't push 3 hours.
No,
I don't mind it.
Well, I'm getting worn out
myself.
myself. So.
Yeah, okay. John, I would just say, not before Monday of next week, because we're gonna run into some good weather, which could be good for doing some stuff. So,
Yeah,
maybe,
Dan, I'm in no rush. I've got a lot on my plate. So, I mean, whatever
Okay,
works, we
all
can
right.
talk about it. I mean, obviously I need to pull
Okay.
together a bunch of stuff, but yeah.
okay.
All right,
I'll make a motion to adjourn. How's
all
that?
right. Thank you. I'll agree with that. Good night till next time.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Okay. Good night, everybody.